You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This episode is sponsored by Student Access. Student Access, the leader in Trio software. Student Access is an online database solution that allows Trio programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former Trio staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with Trio. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Trio. This is Season 6, Episode 22. I am your host, Juan Rivas. In today's episode, we have Dr. Lydia Perez. Dr. Perez is on the podcast to share about her Trio journey, going to college, obtaining a doctorate degree, and being recognized for her work with Trio through the Walter O. Mason Jr. Award for exceptional contributions to educational opportunity. Coming up in just a bit, Dr. Lydia Perez. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Vialpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Nepute, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Eric LaMaster, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, NOSOTROS Education Center, TheTrioStore.com, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. And Student Access. Thank you so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. If you own a business and would like to run an ad on our podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is at Let's Talk Trio. Your support helps lift Trio voices. If you would like to nominate a participant, staff, advocate, or alumni to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Dr. Lydia Perez, Trio alum and Director of Trio Programs at Mesa Community College. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode.
Hi, Trio Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast currently serves as Trio Director at Mesa Community College. She holds a bachelor's degree from Arizona State University in psychology, a master's degree from the University of Phoenix in community counseling, and a doctoral degree from Saybrook University in organizational leadership. She is the recipient of the 2024 Walter O. Mason Jr. Award for her service to Trio programs. In her spare time, my guest enjoys travel, reading, spending time with family and friends, binge watching TV. I will ask what type of show she likes to watch. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Lydia Perez.
Hi. Thank you so much.
So glad to have you here on this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. We are very fortunate to have you.
I'm happy to be here. It's a pleasure.
So how are things in, I imagine, Arizona, right?
Yeah, I am in Phoenix, Arizona. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, work in Mesa, just a outlying city of Phoenix. But yeah, we're finally enjoying some cooler weather because, here it can, temperature is our only news sometimes.
Record breaking, temperatures
Yes,
in
we
Arizona.
had the longest summer of the history of the world.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
just this past summer. Yes.
We're starting to feel the cooler weather here in Colorado. Summer stuck around a little bit. We're finally feeling it over here.
Good for you guys. I mean, I'm sure, and that must be very weird for people who are used to getting cold early.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Above temperatures, and we're like, where is the snow? So it's been a whirlwind of a month. We are in November. We just had the elections. We are headed toward a fall break for Thanksgiving / just fall break. What are you doing to decompress after so much that has happened?
I think for me, first of all, it's important to always, it's okay to decompress. And I actually need that on a daily basis. I come from work, and I do need time where there's nothing on the agenda and it's just time for me to sit and reflect. When it's big stuff, like it has been a relatively intense, last 2 to 3 weeks, there might be some more like physical things that I do, or more like obvious things that I might do, like go on a walk, or maybe go on a little more extensive, like a hike, or drive up north. For us in Arizona, we can see a real change in nature if we drive up north. So yeah, but on most nights I decompress by just grabbing my couch and watching some TV. Time with my nieces and nephews is great when it's been stressful, or when I have hopes and fears and things like that are heavy on my mind. Getting back to little ones, it helps me get back to center.
Good.
So yeah, and then some days if it's super serious, Lydia needs to go to a spa, or to some, I need a manicure, a pedicure, or a massage or something.
I love that. That's wonderful. So now I'm going to put you on the spot, because you say you like to binge watch TV, and I know that this will be a question that I ask you later on, but what is a show that you go to that you binge watch that helps you decompress?
You know what? I actually go back to things I've done. I just moved from, normal, what would be cable television, to
Sure.
streaming. So there you
Oh,
don't catch like live stuff. This is my, like, I can rewatch Game of Thrones
right
if I
on.
want to. I can rewatch Lord of the Rings, all 3 of them, all 4 of them at the same time.
Hmm.
So yeah, but I don't want to depress your audience, because I'm really kind of, it might be the psych major in me, but I do watch a lot of like documentaries about like serial killers and the darker part of our cults. Those will occupy my time, and I can watch a lot of those. Unfortunately, I also do. For me, it's good. For other people, it might be unfortunate. I also watch a lot of political documentaries.
Hmm.
So yeah, I can pretty much binge watch anything. Um, yeah.
Wonderful. So we're almost done with 2024. What are some lessons that you're taking from this year?
I think knowing that 2024 was going to be an election year, I almost started 2024 with like this sense of uncertainty.
Hmm.
And that I was just going to kind of let whatever happen, and then we would deal with it once we knew things.
Right.
And now that we're almost at the end, I have to, in my own personal thoughts and feelings, I have to, embrace that even though things may feel really dark sometimes, there's always light. There's always hope. I know for me, I struggle with sometimes seeing the good when things don't necessarily go the way I believe they should for the betterment of society. So it's
Hmm.
important for me to remember that there's always potential for good, and that there's power in belief of that potential. I also know that it's okay to not be okay. I no longer, I don't expect people to be, immensely hopeful this holiday season. I understand if they need their Christmas trees. I've had friends who already have their Christmas stuff up, because, whatever you need. And it's also okay to need that because you're not okay right now, and we're not okay right now. So yeah, if anything, hope just seems to be like a big word for me right now, and the power of it.
Absolutely. So we're gonna definitely clip this, because that is a clip to put on social media. Um, what are some things that you're looking forward to 2025? Because we're done with November. Can we just be honest? Like, we're done
Yeah,
with
I don't know what
November.
happens to November. It happens every time. And as the older I get, every year I'm like, how do we lose like 2 months? And it's 2 of the best months. I
Yes.
mean, I don't know about Colorado, but me in Arizona, October, November, beautiful. The weather's beautiful. People are in a better mood. And now all of a sudden I only get like 4 days of it, I feel like, you know?
It's shortened for whatever reason.
It
I
is.
feel like Halloween just kind of snuck up on me all of a sudden, and then November, I'm like, my supervisor was talking about, oh, I hope you all enjoy your fall break in a couple weeks. I'm like, how are we talking about fall break already?
I have to go buy Thanksgiving stuff because it's in like 2 weeks. And I'm like, "Ah,
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's crazy."
it's yeah, I'm right there with you. But so can you talk a little bit about that? What your did we cover that the what you're wanting to take for 2025?
Yeah, like what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Even though for a lot of people things might feel like, and I talked about it above, this isn't like the most hopeful, joyous time for a lot of people. I think sometimes what happens when we're put in front of obstacles is that my hope is that for all people, it like renews your energy and your vigor. And that's
Hmm.
what it should do for us. The sad part is that for a lot of students or for a lot of people, especially marginalized people, that's somehow not what happens to us when we're presented with obstacles. Sometimes what happens, unfortunately, is that we draw back into all the negative because of it. And that can be like a real wall that people can't penetrate. So for me, what I'm looking forward to is, yeah, things haven't gone right in 2024. It didn't go to my master plan. But if anything, I'm working right now to make sure that I'm still vigorous and I'm still excited and energized for what can be. Nothing is done. Nothing is over. 2025 can bring about the social justice that so many of us wanted to see realized in an election or realized on your campus. We can still get that. That's still possible. So I guess for 2025, I guess I'm looking forward to like, how can I nurture that sense of hope and that sense of vigor and that sense of ready to do some work in myself first and foremost, but then how can I then project that out to those around me, create an environment where people can feel hopeful and can feel like there's opportunity to better themselves and to better others. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So I got to pause here for a second because I feel like you really reflect and emanate a lot of still hope. And for me, the new year always brings that hope of here we go into the new chapter, renewed vigor, renewed energy, and you emanate for sure. Like it comes through this podcast as you just bring that energy. I can only think about it and hope that it's there, but you would definitely emanate that.
Oh, thank you. And it's not, I need to work on doing it more often. I wish I could do it. Like I would say, preparing for this event, this podcast with you really helped fortify my sense of hope. And so I think for me, I don't need big things. I think I need big things are great
Mhm.
but even little things can fortify. And we see that in our work or it could be in your interaction at the grocery store. But when you find those things that give you it, hold on to them and grab them and use them. So yeah, no, I'm glad you see that. Because there's power in that and it's strength and courage to be hopeful. So
Absolutely. So what led you to pick up travel, reading, and binge watching TV? What was the catalyst to that?
I think for travel, it was my work. It was Trio. The first time that I was on a plane, as
Hmm.
a first generation student was with Trio because of my
Oh
job.
wow.
We had to go to a conference. I had to get on a plane.
Hmm.
Um, and I
Do you remember
enjoyed
where it
it.
was?
Oh, my first time on a plane. We went to a conference in Las Vegas. And I'd been to Vegas
Oh,
before,
yeah,
but my family had driven. So we've driven to
for
Vegas.
sure.
And I've
Yeah.
seen the beauty of like the Joshua Forest. Not really any beauty there. Don't tell the forest that, um, but to go on a plane, to go to the airport, to check in, it was different then. It was 1996, 1995. Um, but yeah, and I liked it. So I did it a lot for like
Hmm.
many, many years. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I'm tired of packing. I don't want to pack anymore. I don't like unpacking. I still have a suitcase from a trip
Yeah.
last weekend that I haven't looked at yet. But yeah, travel was from work. And my work has taken me places. I've been
Hmm.
fortunate that, and not just to like Joe Average LA. I've been to the hotel right outside the airport for a training. My work in Trio's taken me to places like Ireland. I've been to
Wow.
Palau. I'm fortunate that I've had family who also like to travel. And when we were able to, So I've been out of the country before, but that was all instilled because of Trio. Reading, I think I always liked reading. My parents were, I mean, I wouldn't say we weren't allowed to watch TV, but if we weren't doing TV, we weren't playing outside, a book, my mom would say, you know what, go find a book or go do something. And then once we got into school, I've always liked reading. I will say my PhD program I'm on a break. I'm on a
Yeah, oh, for sure.
break.
For sure.
Just because, from 2019 to 2022, I read a certain kind of thing all the time.
Oh, for
So,
sure.
but I need to get back into it because I love it. It's a great way to transport without physically going anywhere. And my family and friends have just been, I'm really lucky. And I know not everyone has that blessing, but I've always loved spending time with my family. We're not perfect, but they're a rock that I can go to. And the same for the friends that I have in my life. I don't need to see them or talk to them every day, but when I do, it's a fortification of who I am and what's good about the world.
Mhm.
And yeah, honestly, and I guess parents don't listen, but TV's always been my friend. I've never been like, I wouldn't sit for hours in front of a TV, but I find great enjoyment sitting on my couch and just watching something, anything.
Absolutely. I think when you have a compelling story to watch, that it's worth sitting down and just watching it and all the way through. I remember when I first got introduced to Breaking Bad, my ex-partner and we binged the 5 seasons in one weekend.
Yeah. I mean, that
So,
was there was a lot of bad, but for me, the pandemic, that's when Game of Thrones had been out, but
mhm,
I figured, well, I might as well do it now. What else am I going to do? I
right.
think I watched 8 seasons or at least 7 of them, 6 of them in a weekend of
Wow.
Game of Thrones.
That is
Yeah, I
commitment. Because
destroyed it.
those
I
shows are
burned
pretty
it.
long.
It was, yeah. My family, and I would shut my door because I would watch it I'd get up, 9 in the morning, watch it till 3 in the morning. And again, I wasn't doing it. It was a weekend but yeah, no, I don't think nothing has to be as bad as we lead it on to be. It's what we do with it. I believe a lot we're empowered as people. And so I can make anything really great or I can make anything really terrible depending on what I do with it,
Mm,
so.
mhm. That's a good perspective. So I'm gonna quickly just also mention, so you enjoy spending time with your family. It sounds like you enjoy their presence and being around them. I guess what nurtured that? The being around family and that because let's be honest, right? For some of us, family, while definitely a blessing, can be stressful.
No, and I think every family has stress, and I try to emphasize that a lot to like our students, because especially when you work with first generation low income students or marginalized students,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things they feel like they can blame for the situation that we find ourselves in.
Oh,
No
for sure.
family is perfect, and my family is not. I think what helps is that my mom came from she was the youngest of 12 kids.
Hmm.
So in the early stages of my life with that family was very tight knit. So I had like 88 cousins, aunts and uncles who were still alive and around. And I would go every weekend to my mom's side of the family and we would spend Christmas with them. And we had to rent halls for Christmas. It couldn't just be at someone's house.
Right.
Um, so I think my mom's influence was really big. And of course, I have to give credit to my dad. My dad came from a much smaller family. It's just him and his sister, my aunt.
Hmm.
Um, and they come from a very different kind of like family structure. But he was willing, and he was very accepting of sacrificing, maybe we'd have to spend Christmas Eve with my dad's side of the family so we could go Christmas Day to my mom's side just because of the sheer volume.
Sure.
Um, and my parents were always big about, you know what, we're gonna fight, you're gonna make mistakes, we're gonna make mistakes, but in the end, we're family. And it's in our best interest to stick with each other. Good, bad, and indifferent. I do want to say though, because I tell this to students, and I learned this by working in Upper Bound, is that not all families are that healthy. Like
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
I've encouraged students that if your family is the problem, if your family is the obstacle, um, remove it. You
Hmm.
can find what I get from my family, I have confidence that I could get elsewhere too if I wanted to and needed to. I'm
Hmm.
just blessed that I can get it from there and from other places. Um,
Absolutely.
but I would never tell someone that, they're your family, and that's just what it is.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's not always in the best interest of who we work with or who you are. No, but I'm blessed that my family was a good place for me to be.
Absolutely. And I have to pause here, Dr. Perez, because one, I have to congratulate you for being the recipient of the 2024 Walter O. Mason Jr. Award. That is a huge achievement because that's a monumental award, right? It's really for outstanding trio folks such as yourself who've made impactful work in trio. And that's recognized by the Council of Opportunity and Education.
No, thank you so much. As someone who's been in trio for, well, my professional career, most of it has been in trio. I've been to the COE conference. My first one was in 1997, 1996. So I've seen that award given out, and I've seen who gets it, and I've seen what it means to people. And so you also have no clue you're getting it. Someone calls you like months in advance to let you know. But it was one of the greatest honors probably of my career.
Wow.
It's an honor, but I think I just feel gratitude. I'm so blessed for what Trio's given me. They've given me so much. So this award for me is more about showing them, telling them thank you. And I know that there's more that I can do and more that I want to do, but no, this award just, Mr. Mason was kind of like a foundational rock for Trio. I never met him, but I also was fortunate to know Trio people who did. So no, it's an honor. But if anything, it's a way for me to say thank you to Trio.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you seeking guidance to enhance your Trio project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. NOSOTROS Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your Trio project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of Trio programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for Trio projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined Trio experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, development of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and Trio projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. NOSOTROS Education Center, your partner in Trio's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotros.edu.org.
And now, back to the podcast.
And we will continue discussing your service in Trio, but I would like to talk about your journey in education. So let's take it back a little bit. What was your upbringing and your family like?
So yeah, I was born and raised here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've lived here most of my life. I did have a brief midlife crisis stint, that's what I call it, in Washington State, that lasted like all of a month. I'm the old, and then I moved back to Arizona, and I think this is where I'll be for the remainder of my life. I'm the oldest of 4 children.
Give it up
all
to the oldest
daughters.
children. Same.
My poor dad. Yeah. My mom and dad both graduated from high school. In fact, they went to the same high school. They just graduated at different times. My mom did not go on to college, and neither did my dad. So that's why I'm first gen. But my dad did, right after high school, go into an apprentice program, and he became an electrician.
Wow.
And I was actually quite fortunate because of that. My dad's career probably meant that, and my mom didn't have to work because of that. Because back in when I was younger in the 70s and 80s, It was much easier to live on a single income comfortably. I wouldn't say we were wealthy. I never had Nikes or Air Jordans or like, Pumas, but I always had shoes, and I always had clothes to wear that were appropriate and kept me warm or kept me cool. And we always had food and we could go on vacation. So I'm very lucky that my dad probably should have gone to college. He probably could have been, and I've told people this, he probably could have been an engineer. But again, I think in that time for education and who my dad was and what he looked like, I'm sure they just, why don't you just go and go to this apprentice program? But it served us well, and I have no qualms about that. I will say that so early on, my parents were aware of college, and I think it's because, and I didn't know this right away. My dad, he bought football season tickets to Arizona State University football since he was just out of high school. So he was like 19, 20 going to football games on Saturdays at ASU.
Wow.
Him and his friends. So when him and my mom got married, and I remember I was young. I couldn't tell you exactly what year, but I always remember hearing about college. I mean, we never went to any colleges to look at them or see them or tour, but they always talked to us as young as grade school. You're going to college, so school is important. You're going to come home and do your homework. You're going to do well in school. You're going to behave yourself, and you're going to college. And me and except for one, all of my sisters have degrees except for one. And that's not a slight against that sister, because college is not for everyone. And you can have a very successful life with or without a bachelor's degree. I just understand the opportunity that my education has provided me. And I know that's what my parents wanted us to have, was just opportunity. So yeah. And then as we got older, I think my parents felt it was okay to be a little bit more transparent. So like when we got into high school, and my parents realized that for all of us as sisters, we did good in school. We were good grades. And my parents knew that we had the potential to get scholarships and stuff that could pay for college. That became even more. So my dad was adamant, me and my second sister, we weren't allowed to work while we were in high school, because our job was to do well in high school. And they believed that if we had a job, that might jeopardize our academic performance. So he would always tell us, your mom and I will figure out how to get you things that you need, but your job is to go to school. And they would tell us why. They would say, because if you're going to go to college, someone's going to have to pay for it, because your mom and I, we can't, and I appreciated that honesty. In hindsight, I'm not sure. I think it might have scared me a little as a high school student to hear that, but in retrospect, I needed to hear that because it gave me some drive, some focus. And I know that not all first-gen students now are that fortunate. I've worked with Upper Bound, so I know that there are high school students who have to work, or else they can't live in their apartment, or they can't stay in their house, or they can't pay a car payment. So I understand not everyone was fortunate like I was. And so I can respect and acknowledge any student's path. I just really appreciate that my parents valued education that much. Yeah, so I would say when it came to my family and upbringing, I couldn't have asked for anything more better.
Wonderful. So you kind of covered already that education really meant a lot for you and your family. And I'm going to reframe the question a little bit, but how did they help you carve that path to the college education? Because if they were emphasizing already college at an early age, what paths did they take, or how did they help you kind of go in that direction?
I think what really helped again was that because my mom didn't have to work, she could be really involved in our early education. So she went to all of our, we had conference meetings. She would go to the school and volunteer. So that meant that teachers at school or the principal or the counselor, they knew Mrs. Perez, they knew Lydia's mom. And if they came across an opportunity that they thought Lydia could gain something from, they didn't tell me, they would tell my mom. And before I knew it, I'd be home one day and said, oh, we're going to go to this meeting and we're going to go learn about this thing. And again, I was fortunate because my mom could do it. So if it was, it was a daytime meeting, my mom could go. If it was a nighttime meeting, my mom could go. I'm blessed that we had 2 cars, so it wasn't about how can we get somewhere. Yeah, it was just, I think it's because my parents looked for opportunities, and when some came across, there was no choice. We were just kind of told we were doing.
Wow. It was an expectation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow. Can you walk us through your educational experience in elementary, middle school, and high school?
Sure. I'm going to get on a soapbox and I'm going to praise public education because I believe it's threatened right now. So me and my sisters are products of a public school in a very low socioeconomic area of Phoenix, Arizona, and I came out just fine. So I loved my educational experience, you know. I was I think it helped that I was a pretty good student. You know, I wasn't, because I was deathly afraid of my parents, and I had good discipline. And I knew what would happen to me if I got in trouble at school. So I was a decent student, both academically and behaviorally. So yeah, I went to a public elementary school that was right down the street from my house, called Valley View Elementary, K-8. And the teachers were wonderful. I maybe had 1 or 2 questionable teachers, but I could overcome their deficits and still learn. But the majority of my teachers in grade school, wonderful. And again, encouraged post-secondary education. They didn't beat it down your throat. There was no guilt or shame if that wasn't going to be in your cards. But when they knew that it was a family, that was going to be a goal, they pushed it and they talked a lot about it. And they were very nurturing. You know, it was great. I had a great elementary school experience. My parents I had to be involved in school. So when they had after school activities, I went. When they had nighttime stuff like carnivals and things, we went. My family went. Yeah. And if there are things I did want to do, like band or something, my parents supported it. So K-8, great. And then I went to high school in Phoenix, again, the high school closest to my house. But again, I think it's because of my family and the sacrifices they were willing to make. I didn't have to take a city bus to get there. My mom could drop us off and pick us up. I could join clubs there that I wanted to. And again, that's when, you know, post-secondary education became a little bit more emphasized. I do want to say something and it's in my dissertation. It was in the 4th grade that I knew probably that I was going to go to Arizona State and that I was definitely going to college.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because my dad took me to a football game, an ASU football game. My mom wouldn't let us go when we were super little, and I get it, loud, late at night.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
People are crazy. Student section can scare people.
Oh my gosh, very boy.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I remember my dad took me, and it would be just me and him because he only had 2 tickets. So he took me, and we would sit in we had end zone seats. And one of the games, I can't remember which one, but one of the games, so if we sat in the end zone, the student section was off to my right. I can visualize it. And that's, you know, student sections at football games, madness, crazy. You know, that's a different breed of human than everyone else who's in a stadium. And I remember looking at him and asking him, who are those people sitting over there? And he said, oh, that's where the students sit. They get to sit in a special section for them. And I'm like, oh, all right. And he goes, yeah, you're going to sit there. And I'm like, oh. And there was like that. And that was it. My dad is a man of few words. There's no big poetry, or it was just, there's curt sentences. And he didn't explain it. He just said, yeah, that's where you're going to sit. And then when I come in halftime, we can meet up downstairs and get our soda. I'll buy you popcorn. And then you go back to your section and I'll come sit over here with your sisters. And it just kind of seemed like, okay, that's what I'm doing. So I guess up until then we had heard about it, you know, things like that. But for me, 4th grade, that football game, that's just what I was going to do. Just like you're going to get up the next day, put on clothes and go somewhere. I was going to go to college. And I never really said it out loud, but I probably knew that at that point I liked it. ASU was like, I can see myself here. I can see myself doing that. And I would always go. My dad would let my sisters, if any of them wanted to go, he would take them. My 2 younger sisters were probably too little. My second sister had no interest. So I got to go over and over and over again. So I just kept seeing games from fourth grade all the way through high school. I would go with him to football games. So yeah, and I don't want to say sheltered, but my parents were very structured. I wasn't allowed to do a whole lot of crazy hanging out with friends and things while I was in high school. I had to make sure my grades were on point, and if they weren't, there would be consequences. I wasn't allowed to go a lot of places by myself. And in high school, I hated that, and and I was probably not very happy with my parents then. But in retrospect, it made me who I am today, so I can't really fault them for that. And then probably the biggest thing in high school, again, because my mom could be involved, my counselor recommended a trio program, Upper Bound, and gave me a little brochure. And I took it home, and as I do, because I'm a good daughter, everything I get, I show to my family. And my mom said, "You're going to that session, whatever day it was at the high school, you better go to it. I want to see the paperwork they give you." And so I filled it out, and I got into trio my junior year. Prior to that, I'm going to hop back to like eighth grade. Eighth grade, my mom learned about a program at Arizona State called the Hispanic Mother-Daughter Program. And there's a lot of programs now nationally that are like this, but I want to say ASU's was probably one of the first. Nationally, what it does is it daughters and moms go to Arizona State University. For me, it was on Tuesday nights. So we would go from 6 to 9 p.m. A bus would pick us up at our grade school, or we would drive there. And for a night session, we would have maybe 1 or 2 sessions together, or 1 or 2 presentations together. And then they would have sessions for the parents, the moms, separate from the daughters. But it was all about college prep and exposure to a post-secondary institution. You would see the campus. You would meet people who worked at ASU. And then in the summer of your 8th grade year, when you graduated and about to enter high school, they had like a week-long summer program that you went and stayed, just the daughters. You went and stayed on campus in a residence hall, So again, I'd been to ASU, but I'd only seen the football stadium and that part of campus. The Hispanic Mother-Daughter Program gave me a little bit more exposure to the campus. I lived in a dorm. It all became very like, okay, this is just what college is like. And so by the time I got to trio, I would say I was probably more prepared than most other first generation low-income students, but still trio was like instrumental. And we can talk about that later and what it did for me. I think if anything, the earlier experiences just gave me exposure. And a lot of times as first gen students, that's all we need is just show me it. Let me live it. Let me walk through it and around it. So yeah, Hispanic Mother-Daughter was probably the first thing that lit the fire underneath. I would say more so my mom than me, because then my mom became adamant about doing stuff and making sure we were on point. And all my sisters went through Hispanic Mother-Daughter program.
Oh, that's awesome. I did want to stick to your point about being exposed to the college campus and that football game, because for a lot of first generation college students, before even entering college, they have no idea. And I'll share this with you, Dr. Perez, is that being a first generation student myself, had no idea what the college environment it was. And it wasn't until Trio Upward Bound that I got more and more exposed to the campus and how things worked, that it made me comfortable to ask about college.
Yep. No, absolutely. And it's exposure for both the students and the parents, which is why I think it's so important that Trio Upward Bound programs have parent components, because just like the students need it for like to build that sense of empowerment and knowledge base, it does the same thing for the parents, because they're just as lost as you are. It's just that, and they need to learn it. And once they learn it, you can see the parents and how they change. I have notes. My mom passed in 2007 and I was going through some stuff.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you. I have notes from her attending an Upward Bound financial aid session for parents. I kept it because it's just to know that a first gen parent, that's what, and I used to see it because then I worked in, Upward Bound, but no, it's that simple. And I try telling students that all the time. It's not about your brain. You just need to see something. Someone just needs to show it to you. And then you got it with some work. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to reframe this question, because now that we know that you learned about Trio Upward Bound, what was your impression of the program when you first joined it? What was some of the takeaways that you had?
what the heck am I doing at a school at ASU on a Saturday from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon was first.
Uh-huh.
Because even though I wasn't a big going out high schooler, you were interfering with my cereal and cartoons on a Saturday morning.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But you know what? That went away shortly. I would say I joined Upper Bound my junior year in high school. I would say by the middle of the fall of my junior year, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was good to meet. And then my high school, the Upper Bound program was big. It's one of the older Upper Bounds in the nation. So it served students from like 6 different high schools. So then I also got to meet like not just students from South, my high school, but I also met students from other high schools, neighboring high schools. So again, they're a perfect gift. I don't know if it's intended by the creators of Trio, but your network begins to grow. So that sense of isolation that some first generation students get, that they're the only ones. I didn't get that because by the time I got to ASU, I knew a class of 35 seniors in Upper Bound who were going to go to ASU. I already had a network
Wow.
of first gens who I could go to and seek support from. So yeah, my first impression was what the heck. And it's not just being up on a Saturday, but it was English work additional to my high school, extra English,
Yeah.
extra math, and in the summers, 5 weeks of a summer program, which is no credit. My trio program didn't offer high school credit or college credit.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what the? But again, I think the personal stuff that I got from it began to outweigh the academics and the work of it. And again, I was a decent high school student, so the academics were okay. But no, yeah, my initial was like, man, mom, this is terrible.
You signed me up for more work.
Exactly. You didn't give me a choice. I wanted to say no, but there was no in the conversation. But yeah, that didn't last long. But yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to reframe this next question because you really hit the point that your parents emphasized college. So ASU was already in your mind. Did you think about other colleges while in high school?
I did in high school. So once again, I was a strong student. So that meant by sophomore year, junior year, I was getting invited to go to things like the other 2 state universities were inviting me to go preview day at University of Arizona. I could have gone to NAU and seen that campus. And again, because of Trio, I was also looking out of state, and my parents weren't too against that either. So I can tell you now that my parents and I did do a preview day to the University of Arizona in Tucson. That was a no, first of all, those are 2 rival schools, Arizona State University and the University of Arizona, which meant my dad was kind of like, yeah, we're going to go visit, but you're not coming here.
Dad is a loyal ASU fan.
Oh yeah, it was serious. But I also did consider some out of states. I remember thinking about like Scripps. It was back then marine biology was what I was going to do.
Yeah.
They actually had a marine biology program up north, and I think it's in Washington State. I was looking at a school in California. I didn't look at Ivies too much. I was very realistic, even though I was a strong student, I knew that I didn't need Ivy in my life. But as I got to like late junior, senior year, I knew ASU was going to give me the best package.
Wow.
And plus it would just, for me, it's like, I know it. This is what I feel. I feel like it's a good fit for me. So I ended up I automatically got into the in-state schools because of my GPA and my ranking and stuff. So you automatically in Arizona can get in to those institutions. But I ended up not applying to the out of states. Even though Trio would have paid, for the application fee and stuff. I talked to my family. I said, you know what? I'm going to get this scholarship that pays for my tuition from ASU. I know my financial aid package is going to be able to handle, so we had that talk, and my dad was, I'm sure, secretly happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So I could have, I just chose not to.
Yeah. Outside of your family, who did you talk to about college as you were seeking for guidance and support?
I want to say my extended family, like aunts, uncles, cousins. They were more like the moral support. Oh, mija, if that's what you want to do, we support you. That would be great. But I'm probably one of the first in my mom's family to go through and finish college, with a degree. So they gave the moral support. They didn't need to understand what it was or what it was about. If this is what you want to do, mija, we support you. Of course, because of Trio in high school, I had a whole group of peers who were like on you, and you can remember this from your own Upper Bound experience. It was the trio kids who would call and say, don't forget, we got this SAT tomorrow, so you better not be out on Friday, or we have this for Upper Bound, so don't forget. They were great accountability holders, and it was good to know that we were
Absolutely.
going through something together with
Uh-huh.
someone that wasn't necessarily the case for all of my friends in high school.
Right.
So I had a group of friends, and even my friends who weren't in Upper Bound but were at South, I hung out probably with what you would call the brainier kids at South. So again, we're all on the same path. Maybe we're not in the same programs, but our goals are the same.
For sure.
So I was surrounded by a lot of like-mindedness, and I think that helped keep me motivated. Yeah, I think it's just because it was drilled in me that it wasn't about needing motivation. It was more about just keeping me on point, you know?
Absolutely. I'm going to pause here and share kind of a similar experience. So definitely made friends in Upward Bound, but me and my brother joined Upward Bound at the same time. We were both in the same grade.
Oh,
We're not twins. I was the one that was held back by a grade. And so we ended up going to Upward Bound together. And I remember him being so socially anxious. He's like, because we would have to RSVP to confirm your attendance, right? He's like, Juan, just you do it. I was like, all right, I'll call and let him know that we're coming. But it was a good accountability. Like, you're going
yes.
because I'm going. And if I'm not going, then we got to come up with a reason why we didn't go. So,
We're all in this together, or all out of
absolutely.
it together.
Absolutely. You decided to attend ASU because, again, your father's influence, the football games, being exposed to the campus, and then Trio Upward Bound really started exposing you more to the campus. But were there any particular reasons what led you to the choice of ASU?
You know what? To be honest, if I were to, let's just say I needed to compare it to the three state schools, I think I really liked the magnitude of Arizona
Mm,
State.
yeah.
Of the three state institutions, it's the largest. It even was then. Um, it was the middle school, I guess I would call it. If it was like, because U of A for us is the more prestigious, because back then it had a medical school and it was the only one
Oh,
with
that's right, it
one.
did.
And
Yeah.
it was the first university in the state, blah, blah, blah. And I've always been against, and I don't know what it is about me, but like, I'll be honest, like, I didn't own an Apple product until I had to buy an iPod. And I was like, not because of the product, it's just because, well, if everyone loves Apple, I don't love Apple.
Oh, so
I
you're
had to
like
find
very much
something else. I'm just kind of militant on purpose to spite it.
the
So I think I was
contrarian.
kind of like that about U of A too. I'm like, I could go to U of A. They want
Uh-huh,
me. So I'm going to show
for
them.
sure.
And NAU felt too small.
Mm,
It's up in
mhm.
Flagstaff. It is a beautiful campus for anyone who's interested. Beautiful campus up in the forest. And now Flagstaff has grown, so it's a little more city-ish. But for me, I come from an urban part of Phoenix, very city-ish. I don't think I could have done Northern Arizona. I think for me, I liked that ASU was big. And
For
ASU
sure.
had a reputation. It wasn't necessarily academic.
For
Um,
sure.
I mean, I don't know if you can keep this, you can edit this part out, but one year in like the 80s, Playboy magazine listed as one of the top party schools in the
Oh
nation.
yeah, their list of party
Exactly.
schools.
And again, that was a little bit before my time, but I knew it.
Right.
Um, I don't know. I think I just liked the feel of it. It was big, it was exciting, there were people. Um, and I knew it. I'm gonna be on, it's because I knew it like the back of my hand.
Right
So
on. I mean, that's already an influence right there. So, can you talk about your time at ASU? What did you enjoy the most?
you know what? I love both aspects of my undergraduate experience. I quickly got engaged on campus, but I think that's partly because Trio said that's what you got to do. It's important. So
Hmm.
I joined MECHA. I went to HBSA event. MECHA's a national movement. I went to HBSA, which is the Hispanic Business Students Association. I would go to their events. I worked on campus. I think that was huge too, to keep me there and in the vibe. Um, and I went to events. I loved sports back then. So I went to football games, wrestling matches, softball games. I went to everything. I think what really helped is that my parents were okay with me living on campus. So I didn't
Hmm.
stay home. And
Oh,
again,
very
I
good.
also think that that's fortunate because I had enough financial aid because of my scholarships that I
Hmm.
could. Because I know a lot of first gen students can't afford it. But there is something to living on campus. You become better enveloped into
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
campus. And it's so important for retention purposes to feel like you have a place at your
Absolutely.
institution. And I did. So, and my classes were, you're always going to have those one or two teachers or courses that just aren't yours. It's not your wheelhouse. It's that teacher's crazy. I understand that. So those you just got to rock through, you
So
just,
true. So true.
it's like that song. If you're going through hell, you just got to keep on going and finish it.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but also I had fantastic instructors, fantastic faculty who had written books and were experts in the fields. And the courses were fine.
Mhm.
So my ASU experience was great. And I would put its value tag to me as much as if I would have gone anywhere, an Ivy, a Harvard, out of the country. What I got from ASU was exactly what I needed. So
Wonderful. You decided to pursue a degree in psychology. What led your decision to this degree? Because I'm going to be honest with you, Dr. Perez, it takes a certain person to major in psychology. It really does.
does it explain my watching cults, binge
There
watching
you go.
cults? And
It's starting to explain. I'm seeing the picture coming clearer and clearer now.
and I love telling students this too, because I think right now, unfortunately, in our society, a lot of students feel like they have to come to college knowing a whole lot. And I was
Yeah.
very fortunate that
Yeah.
my family, that was not, and again, it could have been because they didn't know any better. My family did not push, you're going to major in science, you're going to major in law,
Oh,
you're
that's
going to
good.
do this.
Yeah.
All my parents would ever tell me is you're going there to get better chances and better
Mhm.
opportunities and to have
Mhm.
choice. So I changed my major 3 times, all within the fall semester of my freshman year, probably. So like I said earlier, I started with, for some reason, I wanted to be like around dolphins. I still love dolphins. So I was like,
Mhm.
I'm going to be a marine biologist. Why someone from Arizona would aspire to be a marine biologist, I don't know. We ain't got no oceans. Just in case anyone out in the audience, geographically, no water in Arizona besides lakes, and no dolphins live in lakes.
Yeah.
So I took bio 100. I didn't fail it. I got a C, but
Mhm.
right away, and this could be part of that first gen doubt, I was like, ooh, got a C. Not sure marine biology is for me. Because I also
Mhm.
knew then, because Trio had exposed me to the process, that I was going to have to take a lot more biology. And if I already was at C status and not really enjoying it, so then I switched and I thought, okay, what did I like in high school? Again, I have to thank Trio because they talked a lot about take classes that you like, that you're going to enjoy,
Mhm.
that you're going to
Mhm.
enjoy learning about and writing about. So I was like, okay, in high school, I loved history. That was like my favorite subject. I was good at it. I could write, I could memorize dates.
Mhm.
I did fine in history classes. I took a lot of history classes as, my extracurriculars at ASU. Um, but then I started thinking like, what am I going to do with a history degree?
Mhm.
And not that there was no opportunities, because there is, for those of you interested in history, plenty of opportunities for a career with a degree in history.
100%.
But
I'm a
for
history major, so I should
me,
know.
I was like, I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want
For
to be a
sure.
lawyer. And
Mhm.
so I said, okay, let's stop. I'll still take history for fun,
Yeah.
but I'm going to stop there. And for some reason, I took Psych 100. I think it was the second semester of my freshman year. It might have been the first. I didn't do
Mhm.
well in it either. I got a C, but for some reason, as opposed to biology, Psych
Mhm.
intrigued me. I liked the
Mm.
Psych 100 class. I enjoyed reading the book. I enjoyed doing the homework. It was intriguing to me. So I was like, I'll take more Psych classes. Um, and then it just became my major. I think in retrospect too, I think I've always been interested in why people do what they do and think what they think.
Mm.
I was always, of our friend group, I'm the one who listens and who was, the one who was, a lot of people felt comfortable talking to me
Mhm.
about their problems or what was going on. So yeah, I just kind of maybe fell into it, I would say. I didn't come determined with it, and then I even stopped thinking about jobs, because then I just started loving the coursework, which
Mhm.
again, I think is that's a whole other podcast or subject, is, college
A
as
part 2, a
vocational
follow-up.
training. I didn't go to ASU or college because I needed a job afterwards. I went because my family, well, A, they told me to, but B is because I was learning like all kinds of stuff that I was never
Mhm.
even exposed to in high school. And that, my parents, I love them, but they couldn't have exposed me to it either. But I was meeting people and learning topics, and I was just taking that all in. And so I
Yeah.
stayed in psych. I just stayed.
So I kind of have an idea of what the answer to this next question is going to be, but I want you to expand. Did you have a career in mind as you were going through your psychology program?
I think once I knew what most people do with psych, so what most of us do is you either become a therapist or you can go
Mm-hmm.
into psych research, which means you work in a lab and you study rats and how certain things impact a rat, and then you can experiment on people. Um, or you could go to medical school and become a psychiatrist. So I kind of had those three things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say, yeah, I guess by junior, senior year, when I knew psych was my major, I was going to be a therapist. So I was going to make millions of dollars just listening to people talk on a couch in a dark room with like
Mm-hmm.
pillows and, incense. I don't know.
For
So
sure.
that was that. So I guess leaving ASU, I was going to go to, which then I then knew that I was going to have to go to graduate school because you can't do any kind of therapy with just a bachelor's degree in psychology. You need an
Yeah,
advanced degree. So then my
100%.
plan was after graduation, I would just start my master's program.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Um, Shortly after graduation, and I want to pause here because I didn't want to leave this question out, and I'm sorry I left this out, I might be putting you on the spot. When you graduated from ASU, what was that moment like for you and for your family?
Oh, my mom was elated. My dad was elated as he could be.
That's awesome.
Um, no, I think they were proud. I think the best thing was like seeing my younger. So I have a sister who's 2 years younger, and then my next sister is 7 years younger. So that means I went to college for some of my time with my second sister, and we even lived together at ASU. Um, but to see my two little sisters at like the ASU and ASU big school, so that meant that there was like 5
Oh, for sure.
ceremonies that you could go to. ASU super cool. They have a Hispanic convocation that you can attend. I think seeing my sisters, the little ones, just like awe at like the size and the grandeur and the people
Wow.
and the music of it all,
Hmm.
was huge. And to know that I had fulfilled a promise and fulfilled, I think, a dream of my parents,
Hmm.
um, meant a lot. And also to make up my upper bound family went to my graduations. The assistant director was at my ceremonies. I thanked them in my Hispanic convocation comments that you can make.
Hmm.
Um, for me, it was just a lot of gratitude. I'm not good with words or saying thank you a whole lot. So I like to show in actions or in things. So I have a
Hmm.
feeling my graduation for me was a way of showing Trio, thank you, because what you did worked, helped.
That's awesome. I love that.
I highly recommend too. A lot of first gen low income students want to skip graduations. And I know it costs money and I know it's expensive. You can borrow my gowns. And you can find ways to do it, but it's so important to go to at least one of them, some of them, any
Absolutely.
of them, and not just for you, of course, but for your family. Because you never know what that's going to mean to your 3-year-old niece who goes to your graduation. It could change their life. It could change
Absolutely.
your parents' life. Like my mom started going, she went to college. Once
Hmm.
we all were out of grade school, she went. She
That's
started.
awesome.
And,
Yeah,
it's because of what she saw in us. She would tell us that all the time.
that's amazing. So you then, shortly after graduation, you served at Arizona State University professionally
Yep.
as a director. Can you
Hmm.
talk about that time?
Sure. So what happened is I graduated from ASU in 1995. And like I said, my plan was that I might as well go to Arizona State and for my master's degree. So in the interim, though, I wasn't officially in a master's program yet. I was going to take 1 or 2 graduate courses at ASU and kind of feel things out and get a job.
Hmm.
ASU Upper Bound asked if I could stay on because I was working all through my undergraduate. As an undergrad, I was working for Upper Bound as a tutor. I worked in the summers as an RA.
Hmm.
So they asked me after I graduated if I could stay on full time. And they created a position, the director did, called retention and tracking specialist. So I would work
Oh,
with the
interesting.
seniors in Upper Bound,
Hmm.
specifically to build rapport with them so that for our annual performance reports, they would
Uh-huh.
want to connect with me about how they're doing, where they went, because they would know someone, there was a relationship established. So I said,
Hmm.
sure, I'm happy to do that. It's a full-time job. I'll take 1 or 2 classes. So yeah, that was 1995. And I didn't go to my master's program until 2005, 7.
Wow.
So I started working. So the job just kind of happened.
Wow. Uh-huh.
So yeah, I was a retention tracking specialist for some time, and then after a while, they asked if I would be interested in being the assistant director of Upper Bound, and so I said
Oh.
yes to that.
Uh-huh.
And then after that, our director of many, probably my greatest mentor, and he was director of Upper Bound for almost 40 years at ASU, Mr. Irvin L. Coyne, he retired. And he went and told his vice president, you don't need to do a job search, a national search. You have your new director. It's Lydia, so you should just move her up. And the vice president just moved me up, and I
Wow.
became
So an
director.
appointment.
Yeah, kind of like, yeah, there was no interview process. I don't remember one. I think they just moved me.
Yeah.
And that was towards the end of my time at ASU. I think I was director I left in 2013. I think I became director in maybe 2005, 2007.
Now, you were talking about that gap between your bachelor's and starting your master's. Was there already, you had mentioned earlier that there was a inkling that you'd have to get a graduate degree at some point. Was that kind of the motivation entering your position that said, you know what, I need to get a master's?
No, I got my
No.
master's because I started thinking about classes. I started thinking about
Okay.
work, homework. I'm like, I think I want to take a class.
Wait, you missed homework?
I missed like being in a classroom and taking notes and writing papers. I think I really like being a student. Now, once I am a student, I don't like it. So I get that preeminent. But this is what I tell people. When you start thinking those things, that's your time to go back. Because there is no perfect time. So yeah, all of a sudden I would just
There
be
really isn't.
office, at Upper Bound going, really like to take another psych class, or maybe I should get back into the counseling courses. So that was my cue. So I was like, I knew, but I also was not naive. I knew that if I had a master's degree, I knew that that meant that I could apply for other positions. I knew that it might mean a pay increase in my current position. So I knew the benefits of a graduate degree.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that was my driving motivation, or else I would have done it much sooner in my career.
Absolutely. So I got to pause here and just kind of share that experience with you, because also took a gap between my bachelor's and my master's. And so I was working with Upper Bound at the time as a coordinator, and my boss, who we're best friends, and do anything for him, take a bullet for him. But he encouraged me. He said, "Hey, you think about getting your master's at some point?" And I was like, "You know what? In something, sure." And he was in his master's program in communication. And he just said, "Come do this program with me. I think you'll like it." I fell in love with it.
No, and sometimes that's what it takes. I don't think you need to be on this schedule when it comes to your education. I think for some, that's the best route, so go with it. But I think for some of us, we need to hear it from someone, or we need someone to tell us, you know what, you'd be great at that. Have you thought about that? Or knowing that someone's going to walk with you on that path. Because again, as first gen,
Absolutely.
what bothers us so much is that we're the only one. And so like you said, with you and your boss going together, it's companionship. It's having a road warrior with you in the experience. I guess what I always tell people, and that's the beauty of education, it's not going anywhere. Well, I could get political, but I'm not going. But like in the good old days, colleges aren't going anywhere. You don't got to go right away. I think for me, it was great that I was in the working field for years and years, because it gave me a feel of professional life and professional skill sets. And I think that helped me in my graduate program.
Absolutely. Talking about professional skill sets and professional experiences, what other positions did you hold?
So with Upper Bound, I kind of took that, and I think this is something that TRIO programs need to work on actually nationally a little bit, is we actually did have like stages. And I have to attribute Mr. Coyne for that, because he created, our org chart for Upper Bound. So I started at a position that was created. It was very base level. I would say it's an entry level position. But then as people retired or left, he was very adamant about when we hired, he really wanted trio alumni in his full-time positions and even in his part-time. You would have to have been a special candidate to have been picked for a position and you weren't a trio alum. It was almost like one of his, so yeah. So then after that, like I said, I became the assistant director, which then was like the running of the day-to-day operations of the program. You ran the Saturday sessions, you ran the summers, and he just kind of made the big decisions. And then after that, above that is the director position. And I think what Trio struggles with is that there's very few directors who leave. Well, at least back then, directors didn't leave right away.
Yeah, they have this longevity, I think.
Yeah, he was there for almost 40 years. So I think Trio is going to have to evolve because that is not the way of the newer generations. They ain't gonna wait 40 years for a director position to open up.
Right.
But yeah, so that's most of the first 17 years of my professional life were Trio, ASU, Upper Bound.
Wonderful. So what led you to be the director of Trio programs at Mesa Community College?
So after my very short month-long midlife crisis in Washington State, I came back to Arizona, and one of my Upper Bound mentors was working at a local community college, Paradise Valley Community College. And she said, you know what, there's an opening it's called ACE, Achieving a College Education. For the ACE program, they need a coordinator. And I think if I were to mention your name, they would put you right in. It's an interim, which means it has a beginning and an end time. It's not a full-time position. I mean, it's full-time, but it's not forever. Let me talk to someone and I'll get back to you. And again, my month-long sabbatical, as I call it, that's a whole different story. But before I left Washington, I ended up moving to another state. I left already having a job back in Phoenix. So I stayed with the ACE program for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And I don't know, for some reason, it just came to me like, you know what? I have all this psychology and counseling background. I haven't done any of that directly yet. So what? Here I am 40, 41, and I decide I think I'm going to apply to become a therapist and see what it is. I have a great respect for therapy, behavioral health, but it is also one of the hardest jobs that you can have in the world. Great burnout opportunity, but also some of the most rewarding work that we can do in the world. I have a feeling had I done it when I was younger, it would have fed me a bit more, but I got there and I started working and I loved it. But I was like, I don't have the energy and the bandwidth at 41, 42 to do this. And just by chance, I started looking around, and MCC had just gotten, it was their first time. They had just gotten a brand new Trio SSS in 2015. So they had the opening for their director and for their coordinator position. I applied for both. And I just happened to got the director position.
So applying for both, did you get to interview first for the coordinator or first for the director?
Fortunately, it was first for the director.
Oh, awesome.
They wanted the director first. And I think that's because, regulatory, the Department of Ed wants there to be a director.
Oh, yeah, no.
The other ones can wait, but they want there to be a director quickly.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I got the director first, and then they said, well, obviously you're not gonna, we have to remove you from the coordinator. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah, you were okay with it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
What have you enjoyed most about your current position? What do you love about it?
I will tell, just if you want to be baseline fiscal, in Arizona, the community college system pays more than the university system. But that's not, again, I think I want to say this too, and not to separate myself from especially what's going on in our nation and the world. I understand the need for income and the need for wealth, but I've left jobs and gone to another for less money if the job speaks to me. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
I've been poor, so I can go back to being poor and still be happy because I was poor and happy all my life. There's no stigma to me about being low income. There's no stigma because I have great pride in the fact that I came from a middle low income family because I'm healthier than a lot of people I know who got loads of money. So it wasn't about the money for me though. I think my last few years at Arizona State, it was time for me to go, and I was beginning to see all the reasons why it was time. So I wanted to see if a community college system, how different it was from a very large public
For sure.
four-year. I was all upper bound. I mean, I live and breathe it. It's what I know. And this was
Mm-hmm.
SSS. So I'm like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
and so let's see what this is like,
Mm-hmm.
and how different it is. Um, and I realized that, and again, this experience can be different for any institution, for any person. But for me, right now at the 2-year institution at Mesa Community College, me and the staff are much more recognized on campus and acknowledged for
Mm-hmm.
our expertise with this population, first generation low-income students, even students with disabilities. Even though we have disability resources on our campuses, my campus sees us as experts with that. And with that comes, will you sit on this committee asking us for our thoughts? No one at
Mm-hmm.
ASU, I mean, I'm sure the president didn't even know where our office was at Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're the president of an institution that serves, back then when I was at ASU, 70, 80,000 students, and now it serves
Large
almost
student body. Yeah.
100,000. It's hard to know. I don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just more, you feel more attended to, you feel more noticed and recognized. Yeah, but I loved my time at Arizona State. There was, I needed both. And both
Absolutely.
of them have brought me different gifts.
So you've had quite an extensive career in higher education and serving individuals, trio students from low income, limited income backgrounds and first generation. What keeps you motivated? Because I'll be honest with you, Dr. Perez, for me, when I was working in trio, there were signs of burnout, right? There's signs of burnout that show up. And for me, it was like, okay, now I need to step back and then reevaluate my position. For you, how do you stay motivated? What keeps you going?
I think early on in my career, it was seeing the students. It was the transformation of students. Because there aren't many careers in the world that you get to watch someone transform physically,
Hmm.
emotionally, mentally transform. And you can
Hmm.
visually experience it. And that fed me like no other. It fed me more
Wonderful.
than money would feed me. It fed me more than notoriety and prestige
Hmm.
would feed me.
Hmm.
Um, Now, as I've gotten older, and I still love working with students, but for some reason now I'm getting more caught up in like the cause. So I have to keep doing this until post-secondary education in America is built for everyone in the specialized way that everyone needs it. So as long as there's educational inequity, I know that I have more work to do. Now, do I have to do that work by actively being employed in TRIO for the rest of my life? No. But that's
Hmm.
what keeps me motivated to still go to work, is that there's still work to do.
Absolutely.
But no, I acknowledge the burnout, and I talk to new TRIO professionals a lot about this, is that, look, and I can't speak for my programs, because honestly, in the state of Arizona, my TRIO programs pay better than most other jobs in Arizona. Now,
Hmm.
is that
Hmm.
still enough? Are we at the living wage, nationally or in Arizona? Heck
Right.
no.
Okay. Yeah.
But my colleagues in California, I understand why their entry level people can't stay forever, because they can't live on that
Mm.
salary. And a TRIO
Yeah.
budget just can't support, most TRIO budgets can't support what people need to get paid to be able to have a thriving, existence. I get that.
Hmm.
And also, the newer generations, they have to see the meaning and purpose in the work that they're doing. And I love that, because for a
Yeah.
lot of us older folks, it was never about meaning and purpose. It's about, you get a job and you stay in that job until you retire from that job. That
Loyalty,
would be like
right?
my dad. My dad would trip out at how all these people be leaving jobs after like a year or two. He
Yeah.
would be like, what are you doing? You have a job.
Dr. Perez, I think you hit the nail on the head with traditional Latinx families about loyalty to a job. My dad was loyal to a job for the longest time. And when he heard that I was leaving my home institution when I was working there for TRIO, I said, I'm leaving Eastern New Mexico University. I'm going to go to Colorado. And he was like, what are you doing? Why are you leaving the job? You're leaving it for something else? Yeah. And it was mind blowing to him. And to hear, I was like, wow. So
Yeah.
same, samesies.
No, exactly. And it's, much respect to it, but it's a generational division
For
though. And
sure.
that's what we have to understand. Because, my dad, he would have, I stayed at ASU for 17 years. So, when I said I was leaving, I was in my 40s already. So it'd be hard for him to say, you ain't going nowhere, but he did. I could see that concern. But once I told him I have a job already waiting for me when I
Mhm.
move, those things reassure him. But again, it's that mentality of why are you leaving a perfectly good job?
Mhm.
You know what
Mhm. Yep.
and so I get it. But yeah, that's what for me, it's become more causal than about people. I'm more about the movement now as I'm older.
Mhm.
But I still get great joy from working with students. I even get greater joy now. This is something interesting because I'd like to do more research and work in helping first generation professionals thrive in the workplace. Because there's a lot of new research coming out now about how they struggle just like we did when we were in college. It's like you get your degree and you think that all goes away, whatever you
Mhm.
want to call it, imposter syndrome. That's not my word for it, but those things
Yeah.
stay with us in our professional career. And I'd love to start working with first gen professionals about how do we break that cycle? How do we help you thrive in your work environment?
Absolutely. I think this next question, it's a wonderful segue to the conversation we just had. I think many folks question the value of education, especially nowadays. What is your response to these questions about education?
It's hard for me because I think sometimes I'll word it in a way that will make people misunderstand my intent. So I'm going to try my hardest here. Um,
Certainly.
I think a lot of what I said will speak to my opinion. I don't believe post-secondary education is job training. I didn't think that. And that's maybe because my parents didn't call it that,
Mm-hmm.
and that trio didn't call it that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going to college was opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
but that could be anything. I could study abroad in college, and I couldn't do that if I went right from high school to a job. Um, So for me, it's frustrating that a lot of people in our nation see post-secondary education as just job training, which in the
Mm-hmm.
1950s would have been what they told my dad.
Uh-huh.
You're Hispanic, just go to an apprentice program instead of going to college and becoming an engineer. And
Mm-hmm.
granted, it served him well, but it doesn't serve every student well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of, so when I talk to families about what college is, it's opportunity. Because I
Mm-hmm.
can't argue away. I understand that we need work, and I understand that you need a job, and I understand that it's going to cost money, so I want to make money. But for me, it was like I'm investing in myself, and that should cost money. Like I'm about that. I'm like that with professional development. There's a lot of youth or young professionals out there who believe that your job should be paying for your professional development. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
the word your is in there, which means you need to make an investment in your professional development. Absolutely, a corporation or organization in its right mind is going to support you however they can in
100%.
getting
Yeah.
professional development. But sometimes you're going to need to knock down a credit card to go to a training, and you should want to do that. You
Mm-hmm.
should be willing to
Mm-hmm.
pay for a course or a
Mm-hmm.
certificate if it's for your betterment. So I guess for me, what I tell people is that I've had a career that has allowed me to live alone, support myself, travel, network, and be relatively healthy and happy for 30 some odd years on, and there was no specialized training for what I do. I didn't go to
Mm-hmm.
college and get a degree in trio.
No, yeah.
My degree's in psychology, you know? So I say it has afforded me opportunities. I've also had a career off of grants, soft
Mm-hmm.
money, as we would call it in the post-secondary education, money that's not guaranteed. I have a
Mm-hmm.
career
Mm-hmm.
from it. So if anything, my education has afforded me vast opportunity. And I believe in that opportunity so much that I know that if something happens to this job, I know that I have opportunities for other jobs shortly thereafter.
Right.
And that's security for me. And I'm gracious and I'm thankful for that opportunity because I know that not many other opportunities, even a high school diploma, do not afford me that opportunity.
Right. So what's next for you?
I can tell you now it's not retirement because I ain't nowhere near that. Um, just to play it simple, I think I'm in SSS, so Student Support Services, which means our grants are up in September of 2025. So my campus rewrote for both of our grants, but who knows, if we're going to get it, one or both. So I think that will be, and I appreciate this opportunity to that's forcing me to consider, what do I want to do now, with the rest of my career. I don't know if I want to stay as a director, and it's not because I hate it. I think it's because I want to give opportunity. And I think I want to start making changes and having a bigger ripple effect than the ripple effect I have with just the TRIO project. It's time for me to go somewhere or do something that would allow me to have my efforts can have a bigger ripple. Do I know what that is right now? No, it could be a dean position, vice president kind of things. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's I figure out how to do something with this passion I have right now for helping first-gen professionals. Do I become a coach? Do I create training curriculum? Do I work for a company? So yeah, there's a lot to think about. I just know that I have more work to do. Absolutely. And that gives me enthusiasm.
You've had an extraordinary journey to get to this point. What do you attribute to your success?
I think the first thing is that none of this happens to me by myself. I have so many people that are a part of, who are walking this with me, whether they want to or not. Sometimes they're walking it with me. And that's family, that's my friends, that's colleagues, that's people who I don't even know, like inspirational people I may binge watch about, who knows?
Right.
But I'm blessed in that I know that I'm not doing any of this by myself. I'm not alone. I'm not ever alone. I do lean heavily on a sense of humility, because I know that there's still so much more that I don't know, that I'm not good at, that I could do better. And I don't use that to downplay me or my abilities or my potential. I use that to keep me engaged and to keep me focused on what do I need to do next to be the better version of myself. It also helps me, I think something else we struggle with as first gen is this thing, and we hear it all the time. We have to be 2 times better. We have to be perfect. No one's perfect. And I'm sorry, you're not going to be perfect. It took me a while, and I'll say TRIO Upper Bound, I didn't come to college expecting to be perfect. And I think that saved me in a lot of situations. And it's definitely saved me in my professional career. I come into a staff and I look, I'm the director, but you all have been hired for your expertise and you are better at some things than I am. And I will use those in that scenario all day, every day. And I have no shame in that. I feel no shame in knowing that I'm not perfect and that I don't know everything and that I can make mistakes. And so can my team, because that's how we're going to learn. So I guess in the end, I'm not perfect, but I'm enough for today. And I'll be a better version of myself tomorrow. I also think, I don't want to call it luck, but I think that my efforts and my intentions have put me in the right place at the right time for a lot of my opportunities. So I know it's not dumb luck. I know that there are things that I did that put me in situations where I was able to gain. And I appreciate those. But I also know it was dual, being in a good place, doing good work, and it was the right time. And I think that I've always focused on my passion. Again, it's not about money for me. Maybe it's because I do bad things when I have money. I'm not good with money, so you shouldn't give me money. I shouldn't. So
this is not a financial advice podcast.
It's probably that I shouldn't have money. But I've never let. I will leave any job if you're not feeding my soul and then I can't be there. I don't care if you're paying me $1 million. I can't be there.
Yeah.
Because there's no amount of money that can fill my soul.
Wonderful. If you had all TRIO professionals, talking about TRIO professionals, if you had them all in one room, what advice would you give them?
I think right now, and I'm big on this, there's this quote by Nietzsche, and I go to it a lot, even for myself personally. But the quote is, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. And I think it just speaks to the vast importance of meaning and purpose in your life. That it's so important to know why you're doing something. And I will work with upper bound students. And it can start that early in high school. Why do you want to go?
Yeah.
And if they say it's because my parents want to go, I'm like, no. I remember an upper bound saying all the time, I'll call your parents and tell them, I don't think you should be in the program. So give me another why. Because we all have it. Like, you know, when you asked me earlier what I thought about upper bound. Yeah, I may not have liked it the first few times, but I wasn't going to quit because I knew that I had a why already. So yeah, I just, you know, when things get rough and our workplaces do get rough and there is burnout and the world can be going left and you're like, what is going on? You need meaning and you need purpose because that's what keeps us in the game. That's what keeps us fighting. That's what keeps us wanting to go on. So that quote from Nietzsche is like huge for me. And I share that kind of needing meaning and purpose. I think that's also why I stay in trio because I don't know of any career for me that would give me meaning and purpose the way trio does.
That's amazing. What advice do you have for trio students that are either pre-college, in college, or thinking about returning to college?
I'm big on quotes, so I found another one for this one, but I think I want to preface it first by saying, I think first gen students, it's so important for us to come into the school experience with a perspective about our ability, about our potential, and what we can do to have the right frame of mind. Viktor Frankl is one of my favorite psychologists, and he's an author. He wrote Man's Search for Meaning.
I love that book.
He was in Auschwitz, you know, during World War II. So he's a survivor. And he created a whole like theology in psychology called existentialism. He was a part of it. He has a quote that says, everything can be taken away from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms. To choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And I love it because, and what I love telling students is that college is hard and it was designed to be hard. The hard has nothing to do with you. And it's not hard because you're first gen, and it's not hard because you're low income, poor. And it's not hard because you have a disability. It was just made that way. It was designed 200 years ago for a group of people who do not look like me and do not look like Juan. And we haven't changed that system yet. So it's going to be hard. Yeah. So the key is to coming into college, knowing that there's nothing that college can do to you, say to you, that you cannot control how you react to it. Because that's what happens. You know, I got a C in a class and all of a sudden the major wasn't for me. And I've had students tell me that they got a D in a class and I'm going to drop out of school. You know, that's perspective. Don't let that one class beat you. Don't let the way society designed post-secondary education in America, don't let that beat you. You have the power to change how you're going to see that situation. And the same goes for our work life. You know, we go through that same transition. You know, you're in corporate America and these people are talking about plays and shows and how many dinner forks are at a table and why are there 3 cups on my right-hand side? And I don't even know. Those don't break you. It's learning. You can do it, you know, and you still belong there, even though you don't know which fork to start with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So just when things get hard, it doesn't mean you're less than. Things are hard so that you can show people what you're capable of. It's about perspective. And I love that quote. So
I love that. What is one word you would use to describe yourself?
You know, this one was hard for me. It was like the hardest when you gave me the questions. I think for me, the word of the day changes to the situation. But I want to say that because of this interaction, today my word is inspired. I'm inspired by like this effort. I'm inspired by talking about, to finally hear about first gen experiences. I've been listening to a few of your podcasts. It's inspiring. And when I'm inspired, I can go do work. You know, You can make me go have a glass. So I hate water. You can make me drink water. I'm inspired. I'll have a salad instead of a hamburger. I'm inspired. So today the word is inspired.
Again, for sharing your story. It's wonderful. What are you reading, watching, or listening to? So now we get to the binge part of what are you currently binging?
Right now, I'm finishing, but I'm taking my time, so I'm not binging it necessarily.
Okay.
The Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Rings of Power.
Rings
but
of
I
Power.
will say
Okay.
I binged in the sense that I rewatched the Lord of the Rings and I rewatched season 1 of the Rings of Power, and now I'm into the actual new season that started.
Ooh. All right.
But yeah, I'll be honest with you, like right after the election, I started binge watching all of the documentaries that were about our 47th president when he was 45th president. And I'll watch documentaries about, again, I'll watch cults because I don't know, for some reason it puts me in a great state of mind. But yeah, and Netflix can always keep me occupied, and it's easy for me to binge on there. Like I said earlier, reading, I need to get back to, because people have started giving me books as gifts, and that's beautiful. And I'm like, people are giving me things, I gotta start reading. So I also bought the Game of Thrones like 5 years ago, the books.
Oh.
I never read the books. It's like a lot of people read them in their youth or when they were in college. I didn't read them. I just loved the movies when they
went into the show. Yeah.
Came out. And so I've been trying to get into those, and I ain't gonna lie, that's almost as bad as my PhD textbooks, but I'll get there somehow. Maybe I need to go up to the forest by myself with no Wi-Fi and just knock them out.
A little bit of isolation.
Yes. And then podcasts, you know what? I listen to a lot of podcasts about like true crime. Again, that might go back to the cults.
That is super. Those are super popular. Yeah.
Yeah, they are. And I also do a lot of like political or news podcasts. I love Trevor Noah's new. I've liked him since he joined the Daily Show, and I like his comedy and I like his viewpoint and perspective on things. I do Rachel Maddow's podcast because she does some historical ones that I think are super.
She does pretty good.
Enlightening. Yeah. She's kind of historian-ish, so I dig it. But yeah, I can get into podcasts too.
Right on. Dr. Perez, we have talked already for an hour and a half, if you can believe it. It has been a pleasure to have you on this podcast and for you to share your trio story. Thank you.
No, thank you. The honor was mine. I truly appreciate it. And I look forward to listening to the other podcasts. It was great.
Wonderful. So we have a tradition on the Let's Talk Trio podcast where we have the guests sign off. We are at the end. Do you care to do the honors?
It would be my pleasure. Hi, this is Dr. Lydia Perez, Upper Bound alumni and director of the Trio programs at Mesa Community College. And always remember, Trio works.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a Trio program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Trio. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk Trio. We want to get your story to the public.
That was our guest, Dr. Lydia Perez, Trio alum, Trio director at Mesa Community College, and recipient of the 2024 Walter O. Mason Jr. Award for exceptional contributions to educational opportunity. Thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your Trio story. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk Trio podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Vialpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Nepute, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, Felicia Rivera, Eric LaMaster, and Jaded Electronics. Thank you to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, the Trio Store, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for Trio graduation stoles. And Student Access. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can sponsor the Let's Talk Trio podcast in one of three ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on the podcast. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account. Our business handle is @Let's Talk Trio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk Trio podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk Trio podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castañeda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. Be sure to follow the Let's Talk Trio podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This episode was recorded Sunday, November 14th, 2024. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.